In this video, I'm going to show you some of the cool cars and combinations that run with the Southeast Gassers Association. Now, there's a lot of cars and a lot of classes within this group, but in this video, I'm going to show you some of the more unique combinations and some cool background stories that make this group so cool. We're going to kick things off with the quick and dirty 39 Dodge Coupe. Now, this car is one of the original Southeast Gassers cars. This belongs to Tony Turner, and he has had all sorts of trouble out of this combination, and that was no different at the season opener at Shadyside Dragway. He had some issues with this car on Friday during testing and had even more issues on Saturday, but this car is so unique and so cool, and it always gets a lot of attention, so I wanted to talk about it here. This is by far one of the most period correct cars in the whole group. You can see it's got magnesium wheels that have aged perfectly, and then of course underneath that front end is a 392 based Chrysler Hemi. We'll see that it's got mechanical fuel injection, and we'll also see that this thing was built by Thomas Racing Engines, and then a lot of help from Smithburg Racing on that injection setup and some of the tune-up on this car. This thing is built within the true spirit of the Southeast Gassers Association, and he even hauls this thing on an old ramp truck. So great car, super nice guy, and one of the coolest combinations that runs in this group. Next up is a little Chevy 2, and you'll notice this is a very popular application for this Gasser group. These cars are pretty lightweight to begin with, good weight balance, and they look cool. So great combination. This one happens to be set up for the C-Gas class, which requires you to weigh 10 pounds per cubic inch. So this thing has a 302 cubic inch small block Chevy built by Ross Racing Engines, and that means it weighs a little over 3,000 pounds. So this is a really cool combination, big time RPMs. Of course, all these cars have to run a 4-speed manual transmission, and this thing has lots of cool details inside and out. Up next is a really cool old school gasser. Now this has been a race car for a long time. This thing has got some cool history, and you can see the lettering on there has been there for a while. The old paint on this car, the interior, all parts of this car have been in place for quite some time. And this thing is one of the original cars that started racing with the Southeast Gassers Association many years ago. So this thing's been together a while, and it currently runs in the B gas category. It has a big block Chevy in there with a tunnel ram and 2 4s, of course the 4-speed transmission, and this thing gets a lot of attention because it's an old car. It's a pre-World War II car, which there aren't that many of them in this group, so it really stands out, and everybody seems to love this body style. And obviously the performance of the car has always been great. This thing puts on a great show with big burnouts, cool wheel stands, and obviously some good performance down track too. Next up is what I would consider an unconventional gasser platform, a 57 Pontiac. Now, these things look huge compared to the Chevrolet, but they're built on a very similar platform, so these things perform really well, and obviously this one is set up really nice. It's got a killer big block Chevrolet, tunnel ram, 2 4s, and this thing is a big performer in A gas. So it's in the top class in this group. This car belongs to Greg Stelz from Greg's Speed Shop way up in Wisconsin. These guys come a long way to come play with the Gasser guys, and they always put on a good show. Speaking of big block, there was a big change on one of the original Southeast Gassers cars, quite possibly one of the most famous cars that's ever run in the group. This is the Night Stalker 55 Chevy, and this thing belongs to Greg Porter from South Carolina, and he has raced this car at all sorts of different nostalgia events through the years, and he was a staple at the Southeast Gassers for quite a while until the car sort of got ruled out of competition as they began making more and more serious rules for the A-gas class. Well, he has made changes over the winter and come out with a brand new Fulton big block Chevrolet combination, 451 cubic inches, and obviously got that killer tunnel ram and 2 4 setup that Fulton is known for, and this thing is ready for action in A-gas. So everybody was excited to see the Night Stalker back at Shadyside and back with the Southeast Gassers group. And once again, long burnouts, great action from this old school 55 Chevrolet, which is truly an old drag car. This is not a purpose-built car today. This is an old drag car from the 60s that's still out there performing and putting a smile on people's faces every time it goes down the track. Now we've talked about some of the cars and drivers that have been with this group for a long time, but now it's time to talk about a young guy. And as we see on the side of the car, Young Gun is lettered on this Rambler. And this car is driven by Briley Stott. Now he's young and he's been driving this car for a couple of years, but in the grand scheme of things, he's still pretty fresh at this deal. And you can see under the hood, we've got a Fulton prepared small block Chevy, and this thing puts out some great horsepower and runs in the B gas class, which requires them to weigh 8 pounds per cubic inches, and it is a very competitive class. A lot of these cars are running within just a few hundredths of each other. Even though they don't show ETs on the scoreboards in most cases, this is a very tight group and very competitive group. Now here's a really cool one. This is a Pontiac station wagon. This car belongs to Randy Kiefer, who started racing in the Superstock class, but moved up to C-Gas last year and has learned a lot and really made a lot of improvements on his program. This thing has a Pontiac engine with mechanical fuel injection, and he's running in the C-Gas class. Again, 10 pounds per cubic inch, and he's got this thing dialed in pretty good. So it's a cool looking car, and it always gets down the track nice and straight. Even though there's a bunch of Chevrolet combinations, there's some really cool Fords in this group too, including this one. Early Ford Falcon with the name Spinny 3 on there. You can see a slick paint job, got some cool hand lettering, and then Ford in a Ford is about the only way to go. Even though we do see some crossbreed examples in this group, these Ford guys are serious and they make some big time horsepower. This one runs in the C-Gas class, and I was excited to see this car because it turns some crazy RPMs and makes big time horsepower. Here's another cool Ford, another early Ford Falcon, and this one's got a very patriotic paint scheme. You can see the stars and stripes, and then of course the name on the side of it is the Patriot. And again, we've got Ford horsepower, this time a small block Ford. He runs in the B gas class, and he's always one of the top competitors. He got put out in eliminations by the eventual winner, Ted McKee, but this car was on rails. It was absolutely making some killer passes, but he had a mechanical issue and couldn't make that side-by-side pass he was wanting to with that bright orange Chevy 2 in the other lane. here's a car I haven't seen in a while. Again, this is one of the early Southeast Gassers cars. This is the Freebird Chevy 2. I've seen this car make lots and lots of passes at Knoxville and Brainerd and other Southeast Gassers events. But through the years, they've kind of slowed their program down a little bit. Not actually slowing down, but they just don't travel quite as much as they used to. So coming to Shadyside, this is the home track for a lot of these racers. So I got to see some really cool cars. Freebird was a great example of that. I only got to see him make one pass, again running in the B-Gas class. I believe he had an issue, sounded like maybe dropped a cylinder or something on this pass, but really cool car, and this thing is just one of the staples of Southeast Gassers racing, in my opinion. Now here's a really slick and clean 55 Chevrolet. This car runs in the A-Gas class, and he's run select events over the last few years. He doesn't run with the full schedule usually, but when he does run, this car usually makes an impact. He's actually set the A-Gas record before, and this thing always performs well. This time around, he's changing the engine and changed the driver. So originally this thing was built and driven by Terry Housley, and he's a pretty legendary drag racer in this area. He's raced pro mods and all sorts of cool stuff, and his family's been drag racing for many, many years. And you'll notice on the quarter panel of this car, it says Rojo Racing, and that Rojo name was on Housley cars back in the day. So there was Camaros and other cars back in the 60s and 70s that had that Rojo name. So he kept that going. This thing has a killer big block in it and continues to perform well in A-Gas, even though they do have a few bugs to work out of this new combination. One of the most unique classes in this group is called H-Gas. Now A, B, and C gas are all split up by the weight of the car versus the cubic inches of the engine. H-Gas is a little different because it's based on the type of engine. So it is made for 6 cylinders, 4 cylinders, and even some small V8s like Ford flathead V8s are allowed in H-Gas. But you see a lot of inline 6 cylinders. That's a really popular application for this class, and we've got a great example here with this little Anglia that's got a cool, vibrant paint job on it with a lot of old school tricks and great hand lettering. And then under the hood is a Ford inline 6 cylinder with 2 carburetors, makes great horsepower, and makes some pretty cool noises too. These two cars that I'm about to touch on are big, heavy hitters. They are always in the top running for their respective classes, and their father and son team. So Todd Oden and Michael Oden. Todd runs the 58 Chevrolet Double X, and he continues to tweak that combination. Again, running in C-Gas, he has to weigh 10 pounds per cubic inch. This thing makes huge horsepower for a little bitty engine. And obviously the chassis is working well. He's got his combination really sorted out. And he marched through the field at Shadyside, making it to the finals. And as a surprise to all the spectators, they turned on the ET boards for the finals. And we got to see one of the best side-by-side races in C-Gas. We saw Todd Oden take the win running a slower ET, but getting the win on a whole shot. And then right after C gas rolled through, B gas was rolling into the water box, and it was Todd's son Michael running his Chevy 2. And again, big time excitement. This was a big deal, and it made history. This is the first time in Southeast Gassers that a father and son ended up in the finals. Now, they weren't in the finals together, they were in two different classes, but still an extremely cool detail that made for an excellent weekend for the Odin racing team. Now, unfortunately, Michael didn't get the win in B gas, but he put up a good fight, had a great day of racing, and has a really cool and very potent combination in that B gas class. Next up, we have a very unique combination, and this thing would be unique no matter what engine was under the hood. It's a 56 Ford truck, and you can see this is a truck. This is not some lightweight, gutted out race car. This is a big old heavy truck. He runs in the C-Gas class, and underneath that flipped front end is a Y-block engine. Now, these Y-block engines were really cool for the time period. During the 1950s, this was about as good as you could get. But a lot of things changed in the Ford camp throughout the 60s and into the 70s that made these engines pretty much obsolete in terms of making big time horsepower for race cars. But this one has a killer combination of parts. Obviously, it's got big compression, big cam, a huge single plane intake with a single 4-barrel carburetor on there, and he puts up a good fight in the C-Gas class. This thing leaves with the wheels up and makes a great showing every time he brings it out. And I thought it's just the coolest combination because it's a cool old school truck with the most unique engine combination out there. Now, if you know me well, you know that if I'm doing a gasser video, I've got to feature a Henry J. And there was only one running at the Southeast Gassers season opener at Shadyside Dragway, and it's one of my favorite ones. This is the Chicken Bone. It's cool, old school gasser. This thing's got some really neat old details on it, and it runs Chrysler horsepower. So tunnel ramming 2.4s on top of a Chrysler engine. I've seen it go left, I've seen it go right, I've seen it up on the back bumper, I've seen him make some wild passes, but he had this thing really figured out at Shadyside. It was making good straight passes, got the first round win, but later got put out in eliminations. Great car and always out there to put on a show, and I love seeing it every time I go to one of these races. That's all I got for this video. Be sure to check out Southeast Gassers on Facebook or Instagram, or you can go to southeastgassers.com. They have a full schedule ready to go in 2026. Lots of big races coming up through May, June, all the way through the rest of the year. A lot of opportunities to go see these cars in person. I show you guys videos of these cars all the time, but you never get a full sense of it until you're standing there watching these things in person. You gotta go check them out. I hope you enjoyed following along. Thank you for watching.